Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to discuss a DevOps interview question. We are going to first understand the question and then the explanation around the question, and finally we are going to see how to present the answer during the interview. What is the question? The question is, what exactly is meant by service discovery? Can you give an example? You would have come across the term service discovery a lot. Service discovery is used generally in web development. It is also used in cloud. It is also used in Kubernetes. But what exactly is service discovery? When they are asking this particular question in the interview, it is a very fundamental question. They are trying to understand if you really know the fundamental terminologies used and that you speak every day in your normal day-to-day work. So what exactly is service discovery? How will you explain the term service discovery? Let us try to understand this now in the term of Kubernetes. We'll take an example, a very simple example now. So we will have a node, right? So we have a node. This node will have multiple pods. So this node can have one pod, this node can have another pod, this node can have the third pod. Right? So 1, 2 and 3. We will end up having multiple pods here. Let us assume that all of these pods that we see here, they are having some kind of a web application. They are having some kind of web application. This web app needs to be exposed. So we have a client. This client can be a person or a human being or an application, whatever, right? If this client has to reach to this web app, how will they reach? We know that each pod will have an IP address. Each pod will have a dedicated IP address, right? We know this. But we have 3 IP addresses. And we also know that this pod can go down at any given point of time in Kubernetes, and we can end up having a new pod. So we have this constant update of IP at any given point of time. The client basically cannot remember all the IP addresses and keep on looking for a pod. One way to solve this problem is to have a load balancer. So the client will reach a load balancer. The load balancer, let us say, will have a static IP, and all that the client has to do is remember the static IP. But now how will the load balancer know what pod to reach? So now the work will fall on load balancer to make sure and remember all the pod IP addresses, which is again a big problematic situation. Hence, we build a new service, or we have a new service called a service registry. Service registry is used to keep a track of all the different pods in our node or in our service, that is the web app service. Okay, this will keep all the IP addresses in place, and the load balancer will pick this information from the service registry. Now you might get another question. So now all the work is done by service registry, but how does service registry really do it? How does service registry keep a track of all the IP addresses? This is done by labels. If you remember, in Kubernetes, you give some labels, right? You give a label called as a web app. Let us say you give a label called as app and web app. When you build a service in Kubernetes, you actually give that you have to track the label web app. Now you are giving a target label. So what this service will do is, in fact, is only going to pick the pods. Let us say this pod 1 and this pod, only 1 and 2. It is going to only take 1 and 2 pods, and it will not take pod number 4, for example. If pod number 4 doesn't have the label required, then it is not going to pick it. Okay, so the way that service registry is working is, it is going and getting all the pods that has a similar label, and the concept of service discovery comes exactly here. What is happening is, the pod is exposing itself with a particular label. and the service is discovering this pod, and this concept is called as service discovery. I hope you have understood. If you have some doubts, rewind this video slowly and watch it again. I am confident you are going to understand this concept. Okay? How do we present this particular answer in the interview? This is how we have to present this answer in the interview. The term service discovery, I have come across this in Kubernetes. In Kubernetes, we will have multiple pods running in a same node, for example. We have to expose, let us say, our web application to our client. How do we do this? We create a service. Now, what does this service do? This service goes and discovers all the pod which has similar label that we want to expose. Then on top of this service, we build a load balancer, or the service itself will have like node port, load balancer, etc., or cluster IP, all three of this. And then this is going to expose a particular IP address which the client will use. The service is responsible for keeping track of which pod is available and which pod is not. Needless to say, pod is not permanent. It can be destroyed for any reason. Hence, whenever a new pod comes up, it kind of exposes its labels. And the moment we have the labels that we need, the service discovery immediately registers the IP address of this pod into its registrar, and that is exposed to the client. This is how you can explain this concept during the interview. Now, they might also ask you follow-up questions around what do you mean by cluster IP, what do you mean by node port, what do you mean by load balancer in service. That is a different question. That is a follow-up question around Kubernetes. Okay, this can lead to different kinds of question. The question can go to pods here, the question can go to load balancer, the question can go to also security. So from here it can deviate to different kinds of question during the interview. I hope you have understood the concept itself and how to present this answer in the interview. That is it for this video. Speak with you in the next video. Thank you.